Thank you to our Season 2 That Greenwich Life presenting sponsor, RMA of New York. RMA of New York is a full-service fertility center that offers fertility testing, IVF, egg freezing, male reproductive medicine, and LGBTQ family building. And with 14 clinics across Manhattan, Brooklyn, Westchester, and Long Island, they make expert care accessible. RMA of New York is changing lives and helping so many of us write our next chapter. Visit rmany.com for more info. Before you pressed play on this episode, you already made dozens of decisions today. Many you probably weren't even aware you were making. What to say out loud, what to hold back, what to push through, what to quietly accept. But do you even know what's guiding these subconscious choices? This inner script constantly running in every single one of us? It's the guidebook for how you respond to the world around you, how you interact with other people, and how you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. This script is shaped by your beliefs. Beliefs about our bodies, our energy, our time, what we're allowed to want, what feels realistic for you. And let's not forget about the limiting beliefs around what you definitely don't deserve. The crazy thing is, so many of the limits we're all living with right now aren't based in facts. They aren't based on anything that's actually true. They're learned, repeated, and reinforced over time until they start to feel permanent. But here's the deal. They're actually not. There are ways to change the guidebook, to see yourself and everything in your path through a different lens, to then open up a world of opportunity for yourself only you were standing in the way of. My special guest today has helped hundreds, if not thousands of people transform their bodies and what they believe is possible, not through talk alone, but through physical movement. By working directly with the body, she helps people access strength, confidence, and capacity they didn't even know they had. And today, she's going to walk us through what that actually looks like and why changing your beliefs isn't just a mindset shift. It's a full body experience. Because when you shift what you believe about yourself, you don't just change how you think, you change how you move through your entire life. Let's dive in. Hi, I'm Dorothy, a reformed celebrity gossip girl. For more than a decade, I was a red carpet reporter and tabloid magazine editor in New York City, appearing on all your favorite TV shows, spilling the secrets of the stars. But now, I'm a mom of two living that Greenwich life in the suburb of Greenwich, Connecticut. And these days, I'm using my storytelling power for a purpose far greater than gossip. My own journey through infertility, IVF, and late-stage pregnancy loss taught me this. Everyone's carrying something hard, no matter where you live or how polished your life seems. That Greenwich life isn't about status or perfection. It's about honesty, healing, and the messy, beautiful middle ground between who we are and who we're becoming. It's about the resilience it takes to rebuild when things fall apart, and the experiences we all share that remind us we're never truly alone. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad we're in this together. If you're a regular listener of this show, then you know my road to having my daughter was long, painful, and traumatic. I've shared parts of that journey with all of you because it's so important to have the right support during one of the hardest times in your life. That's what makes this season's presenting sponsor, RMA of New York, so special. They're not just fertility doctors, nurses, and embryologists. They're a full team walking beside you every step of the way. RMA of New York is a full-service fertility center that offers fertility testing, IVF, egg freezing, male reproductive medicine, and LGBTQ family building services. And with 14 clinics across Manhattan, Brooklyn, Westchester, and Long Island, expert care is always within reach. I also have to shout out Dr. Lucky Seacon, board-certified reproductive endocrinologist, infertility specialist, and author of the upcoming book, The Lucky Egg, which is all about understanding your fertility with warmth and humor. RMA of New York is changing lives and helping so many of us write our next chapter. Visit rmany.com for more info. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of That Greenwich Life, Season 2, presented by RMA of New York. I'm your host, Dorothy Cascerceri, Simone. And today I am so excited that we are here talking about beliefs, limiting beliefs and challenging beliefs and all of those things. But I want to just reverse for 1 second because I want to talk about the episode from last week with my dear friend, Julie Vincent, with her new endeavor, The Gifted Life. And she talked all about, how we don't have to always be trying to fit our kids and ourselves into these nice, neat little boxes, and about how, if we just kind of like reframe what gifted really means, maybe it's not the kids that are at the top of the class, kids that have all of these special needs have something that's super, super special to them. And, if we're not celebrating that, like we're just kind of thinking about it all wrong. So definitely head back to that episode because it was such a powerful one, and it definitely has stayed with me, and it has, reframed the way that I see a lot of things. I'm here, to dive into these tough topics and try to kind of, figure them all out together, because 99% of the time, the things that I talk about on here, like I'm dealing with them myself. And certainly beliefs and limiting beliefs are something that I have done a lot of work around in recent years, especially on the heels of my really tough, traumatic infertility journey. The way that I talk to myself, anyone who's listening, I know for sure that if you're a human, there have been times that you have only told yourself the things that you can't do and the things that you can't be. And you've second guessed yourself, and you have felt like, you weren't worthy enough to pursue that relationship or that job or that opportunity. And I'm guilty of it too. And it sucks, it's something we all have to really take a good look at. And in asking my guest, who is sitting here very patiently, I'm going to introduce her in just a moment, in asking my guest to come on the show, I really wanted to talk about her and her journey because she's such a fascinating individual. But then I read this piece in her bio about how she encourages her clients to bend in ways they never really thought were possible, both like physically and emotionally. And I just really grabbed onto that, and it resonated with me. And so I wanted to share it with all of you. So let me first tell you a little bit about her. Many of you who follow along with me probably follow her as well. But if you're not, you absolutely should be. She is the founder of an award-winning movement practice studio in Westport, which is right down the street, or should I say right down I-95 from Greenwich, where dance, Pilates, and flexibility training unite into a transformative system that elevates how people move through life. And I have to tell you, the number of people who religiously go to see her week in and week out is really a testament. I mean, I know a lot of these people, and it's a testament to what a devoted customer base she has, and fan base, I'm going to say, because I have to say she definitely has found a fan in me since we connected. This is really a very cool thing about her. She has over 2 decades of experience as a professional dancer and aerialist, and she's performed with artists such as Lady Gaga, The Roots, and Lil Kim. Okay, this is how cool this chick is. She's partnered with leading wellness and fashion brands, including a small one you might all have heard of, Max Mara, Alo Yoga, Rhone, and Beyond Yoga. And her unique methodology was born from demand and a desire to create what she couldn't find, which I always love hearing those stories. Clients consistently described her approach as unlike anything they've experienced, and her very first studio in one of the chicest places and somewhere people in Greenwich love to vacation, Aspen, Colorado, was fully booked from day one. Her philosophy centers on 3 pillars: powerful, free, and alive. How good is that? And at its core, she teaches people, like I said, to bend beyond belief, both physically and mentally, transforming how they see their bodies and what they believe is possible. From professional athletes to artists, mothers, and high-achieving professionals, clients consistently leave feeling like they can do anything. And I believe it, because when I have seen all of her videos on Instagram, I'm just like, who is this magical person? And this magical person I want to introduce today and welcome to the studio is Sadie Newett, the founder of the SSN method. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you.
We were connected so serendipitously through my very good friend, Julie Vincent, who did a a class session with you with mindfulness and movement and things like that. And I went on and saw these like mesmerizing videos of you doing these aerial workouts, and not even workouts, but just like, what would you call it? Like an aerial performance.
Yeah, I mean, as a professional aerialist, I was booked consistently doing ambient acts, which means maybe 15 minutes in the air at an event you would attend, or an act that, just like you see a dance show, a 3-minute, 5-minute piece, and it's what really makes me feel alive. It changed my body, changed my life, changed the course of everything for me, and was a really beautiful convergence of my dance background, growing up in Rhone, climbing trees, having that daredevil, joyful energy. And it just is something that I've been so proud to bring to so many people. But it's also just a practice I maintain to feel like myself.
Well, I feel like when I watch those videos on your Instagram, which is at Sadie Newett, go follow her right now. I feel like when I watch those videos, it's like you're just watching somebody in complete and utter peace and bliss doing what they love most. Like it comes through the phone in a way.
Thank you. It really is that for me. And I talk often about how I know it's medicinal. I know it's powerful for me. And like so many of us with businesses and children and so many things, I can find myself pushing it off. And I have to always connect myself to the belief and the reminder that I'm so close to feeling so much better, so much more powerful, free, and alive. And I just have to get on the apparatus. And I think the more I do that, it does show people, I have clients with young kids who ask every day to see, can we go to her account? Can we see that? Or clients who find it meditative. It's that reminder that if you are lucky enough to find something that helps you feel like you, to stay as close to it as you possibly can.
That's such amazing advice. So you have had such an interesting journey to where you are now. And currently now, tell us really quick, I know that you offer reformer SSN method. I was going to say Pilates, but it's a combination of many things, right?
Yeah. So I've actually, not to correct, but I've been really focused on how I want to present SSN. And I've actually dropped the concept of method because, well, yes, I have my own approach, and yes, I have the system. I think, everyone says I go to see SSN, and that idea, which is true, that this was born from demand, was really when I had my first studio. It was called SSN Aspen because it was Sadie Newett in
Right.
Aspen. And I think while method can be trendy, what's so important to me is how people feel. And so I could say there's a method to the madness, and it's definitely mad at times, but it's just an approach to how we find our bodies, how we find movement, and what we find is possible. So for me, my background is very varied, from childhood dancing to studying dance in college, always being a choreographer. So always actually struggling to learn other people's choreography, which led to realize I'm very good at creating it on my own, because then I do know it by heart. That's where it comes from.
Right.
Then just studying Pilates in college, then post-college, immediately getting certified, teaching in Boston, moving to New York for my yoga teacher training. I was blessed to find a mentor who actually lived in Darien for a long time, and I think still has a client base here, learning Pilates equipment, Thai massage, bar, many other modalities, and really helping grow her studio in New York, to then discovering aerial, becoming a bit of one of the creators of the aerial world in the city, with creating aerial yoga trainings. All of these things, and I could list them forever, really were just ways for me to discover more about what was possible for the body, to feel sensations, and to break down a lot of what I experienced as a child, which was moving wrong, not picking up choreography, not having the proper turnout or the proper extension. I felt I knew often what was being asked, but not how to do it. And so the crux of SSN is really a bit rebellious by nature, in that I wanted to
Kind of like you.
It's very interesting. This type A firstborn daughter meets, always wanting to find a way that worked, because traditional ways did not always work for me across the board. And it turns out I'm not alone, because every time someone came to me for Pilates or for yoga, they would say, it's really not that. It's so different. And it felt, instead of trying to keep fitting myself into a box that made people see a name and expect a certain experience, claiming it as SSN was very crucial. And then that has led to this word of mouth growth completely, because people knew they were going to get something different. And I didn't feel I had to change it per person. I was always curating it to what each person needed versus to what they expected.
Well, that's where the magic happens, because you identified something that you wanted, something that worked for you, and you created this. And then everybody started coming and loving it and then telling their friends, and you created something completely different. And you didn't want to fit yourself into like a particular box, which we actually talked about with, of all people, I just mentioned her, Julie Vincent, last week. And, you know, it's really cool that you set out to do something yourself. So, of course, the celebrity reporter in me, the former celebrity reporter, has to ask about, you know, working with all of the stars and being the aerialist in these shows. Like, when I see what you do with the, what do you call that? It's like a drape or something, like a curtain?
So it's the aerial silks, and they call it a sling when it's
the
like
sling,
a hammock.
the sling.
Yeah.
There you go. This is how much I know about this topic.
No,
but yeah, like when I think about it, I think about Pink when she did her performance at like the VMAs a million years ago, and was singing, and she's gone on tour, and she's done the aerial performances on tour too. So yeah, so what was it like? Like, when was this that you were performing with them?
This was actually before Pink even started aerial. So when I learned aerial, I have a beautiful studio in Westport, very safe, serene, and I learned in a dirty Brooklyn warehouse in Red Hook over a mattress. So it was not the same.
Why is it always like that? Like, when you get started, it's like looks so different than where you are now.
Well, I was so willing to chase that feeling, which I think, again, I've been very fortunate to find myself, no matter what they looked like, in the rooms that helped guide me to how I wanted to feel. And that path was, a little bit like chutes and ladders, where you're going and then you go down,
go up,
and you find
then you go back down, all the way back to the beginning.
But I was always willing to get back up again. And I think, to really answer your question, which can be hard to do because my brain is very tangential, it was a heyday, because I had been a dancer in New York City, and I was good and worked with small companies, but I was primarily teaching a lot of yoga, a lot of Pilates. That was paying my rent, and I was spending a lot of hours doing dance and just not having the big break per se, and not even necessarily chasing. It was a lot of modern dance, like dance my dad would be like, what was that about? Can you explain that? And then aerial came, and it was this bright and shiny thing that really was the convergence of all of my best skills. It, featured this extreme flexibility. It featured being brave. It was so many things that came together that, I believe life is consistently a perfect storm. And that's what aerial was for me. It suspended my longevity in the city. It turned into teaching, because I already had a lot of teaching skills. So I was kind of adding that modality, and I had so much passion for it, which always helps. And then that just led to more and more commercial gigs. And it was kind of great to get to go and do a 5-minute dance performance versus an hour-long one. And it just changed my life completely. So there were not that many of us in the city. And so it was easier to navigate. I guess it's kind of like an elder, like the early Instagram heroes, but it was early aerial.
Yeah. I mean, no, that's how it was when I started Celebrity News. There really weren't that many of us, because there was no Instagram. I think maybe we had MySpace at that time, maybe. And, so you were really on the cutting edge of it. What was the situation with Lady Gaga? Like, tell us.
So my friends completely managed that gig, and I actually didn't even do aerial. I was in body paint with these like sculptural attachments. It was her album launch at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, so no one knew where they were going or what was happening. We were bussed there, and it was just a wild time.
That's so cool. It's so awesome. You know what the most important part of this show is? You. Yes, you, the person listening while you're dropping the kids at soccer, folding laundry, or walking your dog. You make this show what it is, and it's your support, your time, and your energy that brings it to life every week. So can I ask a quick favor? It'll take just 20 seconds, I promise. Head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, hit that follow button so you don't miss new episodes, and leave a quick rating or review. Another great way to spread the love, pop the link to the show or your favorite episode into a group chat so more friends can check it out. These small gestures make a huge difference, and most of all, they help the message reach someone who needs it the most. As always, be sure to follow me on Instagram at DorothyOnTV and check out DorothyOnTV.com for the latest updates and to shop our brand new merch. And now back to the convo. Okay, so now things have not always been, like people look at you now and they're like, wow, you created something so spectacular and you have this unbelievable devoted following, but things have not always been that straightforward for you, right? Like anytime in life something great happens, we know that it probably came from days that were not super bright, right? And you now are how many years sober?
I am just over 9.5 years sober. I'm a few months from 10 years.
That is incredible, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell us kind of about this transformation, right? Because I have several important people in my life who have been sober, not as long as you, but everything that they've dreamed of, everything that they've wanted has been on the other side of their sobriety. And it's really amazing to see. And I see the dedication and effort that goes into it and have a lot of real respect for it. And, for anyone that makes that decision for themselves.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say the word decision because that's what it has been for me. I could talk for so long about all of this. And, when you grow up in a certain type of family, you believe that, or in any family, it's very easy, I think, to believe that what happens in your family is what is also happening in other families. And
yes,
so
that is a belief that definitely a lot of people hold that is probably a limiting belief.
Well, I think it's also safety, right?
Yeah.
Because if you are a young, helpless child, it is to your benefit to believe that the people near you are there to keep you safe and loved and supported, all of which my parents did. This is not to bring my parents into it in any way other than whatever we experience early, we believe is kind of the norm until maybe we experience something else. And my belief around drinking, because I was a very nerdy, very focused on straight A's, being in every activity. I choreographed all my high school musicals. A friend moved to the school and he thought I was a teacher when I was like a junior in high school because I was always, running something. So I did not drink, and my dad was my middle school principal. I was not invited to parties. I was not part of any of that scene. So I had this bystander belief around drinking was that the cool kids drank. So having really no access to that, my parents weren't big drinkers. I didn't drink until the summer before I went to college. And the very first time I drank, I blacked out. And I fully believed that that's what happened to everyone. I just thought, this is kind of crazy, but people drink and then they have no idea what's happening until they wake up the next morning. So, and then I was being a later bloomer, kind of ashamed that that's what had happened to me,
right?
That I didn't really explain that to anyone. And I certainly didn't share that with my parents. And the drinking was always like that for me. It was probably a handful of times that I didn't black out. And most of the time I was with a dear friend or a boyfriend that helped get me home. But there are many unanswered questions about things that happened. I never had a major injury, but, there's so many details there. But long story short, I had many different interventions, all from close family and friends, because even though I was drinking like this, it was not every day till towards the very end. And I was building, very packed classes. I was booking huge gigs. There were very few signs for most people. So I was what you call high functioning, which it turns out one of my grandfathers was. And I really didn't have any awareness about this in my family. So again, it took up a lot of time and space, but I was really able to compartmentalize. I would accomplish what I did during the day, drink at night, and then be back at the studio at 8 in the morning, teach all day, and, maybe make apology cookies for someone, or maybe just not go back to a certain place.
Apology cookies, right? Yep.
In my sobriety, I've made amends, and several people have said, "Oh, I was cleaning out a box the other day, and I saw an apology note from you, or I got an apology Post-it." But I have been sober now 3 times in my late 20s, just before I turned 28. And then when I was turning 30, and then now when I was 31 and change, I got sober. I've used AA. I believe in AA. I have a sponsor, but she had children around the same time I did, and I'm not very devout. And so again, that sort of feeds into the not staying on always the prescribed path. I was very resistant to rehab, which I go back and forth, and I think, I had this belief that I should be able to do things on my own. And I probably could have fast-tracked a lot of the, you think you are going to get sober and everything will be magical.
Right.
And you get sober and then the work begins.
That's the hardest point.
Well, because being blackout drunk or binge eating or shopping or gambling, to me, the concept is addiction. The concept is numbing. The concept is not being able to face what is. The concept is dancing with these beliefs. It did not occur to me to get sober. I just thought I would have to figure out how to drink better. I had this internal allergy to failure and felt that I needed to beat that. So I kept going back to try to drink. I kept finding strategies to drink, always unsuccessfully.
Right, of course.
And thinking, well, I can hang from the ceiling. I can do this. I can do this. Why can't I do this, fun thing? Cool kids do this. What is wrong with me? And, it is so silly, but to think that I never thought to stop. So when I think about belief, it is believing something that you currently don't think is possible is. And that can happen with sobriety. That can happen with a handstand. That can happen with, I'm sure it plays partially into fertility.
Yes.
There's that mind-body piece is wild. And what I do at SSN so much, and this is where, I can go 10 rounds with anyone when it comes to belief, is because that handstand that you might want but have told yourself is impossible really is, until you start to change your belief.
That's exactly right, because beliefs hold you back.
But I am also, as a formerly sneaky alcoholic, I have a sneaky way of teaching that gets people to surprise themselves, to blow their own minds. Because if I say to you, we're about to get into a handstand, I'm taking you right to the center of your disbelief. Now, how are we going to work from that crowded room where there's no air? So we're going to do things that get you into that arena. And when that happens, all of a sudden, I might take a picture, have a client take a picture, and you say, oh my God, I didn't believe that was possible. The amount I've heard that are thousands and thousands at this point. And that's what I think a good teacher, a good mentor, someone should do, is show you where you can go when the road is dark, when it seems blinding. And that's what has been revealed to me by my best teachers, by my best mentors. And that's what I aim to do every time I work with someone.
I mean, something like a handstand, doing that when you feel like I could never do that. Like I'm sitting here saying I could never do a handstand. That can really then lead to so much trust in yourself and so much confidence that maybe you can conquer something else that you've been saying, I can't do that, I can't do that. And you do sometimes need that cheerleader and that person. And it sounds like you've been that to so many people. How are you that person to yourself?
I talk about this actually a lot. And, the more I'm always my best when I'm taking the best care of myself, which is somewhat obvious, but a forever difficult dance. But when I am spending time, even if it's a few minutes training, working on things that are hard for me, because I don't want to teach from the mountaintop and, it's like this and it's like that without being close to a sensation of difficulty, because then I lose sight of what it is. I lose sight of what it is, because to me, a handstand isn't scary. And that's not a special award. I'm not better than anyone for that. That's just what's in my wheelhouse. So life is about getting more things in your wheelhouse so that it's less scary, right? So if I'm challenging myself with a new aerial move or something new with a handstand, it doesn't really matter what it is. I am close to the feeling of saying, I can't do this. So one of the best ways I hype myself up is if I'm learning something new, I'm talking to myself throughout saying, just stay. Do not bail.
So you stay in the discomfort.
Stay for one more second. When I tell people when they lift their leg and I say, and you're telling your brain tells your body, my leg must come down. Challenge it. This is the rebellious piece. Stay for half a second longer and you truly won't believe that it's possible. Because if we want to expand our edge, what we're capable of, what our life looks like, we cannot stay within the same confines forever. We challenge them by staying. And then we might even have more movement. But even if nothing changes except our ability to stay with what is, things change forever.
That's a really great point, because I think people resist the discomfort. The minute that something starts feeling a little bit icky, or like, oh, yes, like I got to put my leg down from the handstand, or I have to walk out of this conversation that I'm having with this person right now. That's where we just stay limited. We're not able to really grow and expand.
Well, and then we're building, right? There's this idea of neuroplasticity, which is how everything works in your brain. So if I say, oh, that hurts, my core hurts, my leg hurts, my brain hurts, my heart hurts, this is hard with my toddler, this is uncomfortable at Starbucks. They keep giving me the wrong drink.
Greenwich 911. That's what we call Greenwich 911 right there.
There are all these kinds of sensations, but then what I'm building is an exit strategy every time it gets tough. And that's the muscle that gets stronger.
Right.
And what happens, and this goes back to my drinking, is you make one not great decision and you can be sure that there's several to follow.
That's right.
So that panic mind, which is constantly trying, what happens when you get sober, or what happens when you face what is you have less to clean up. If I bail, right, I always talk about the way you can get into something in best case scenarios, or most, is the same way you get out. And people get very confused when they're in the air or on the reformer. There's disorientation. And what I have found, and it's very profound actually, I work with a lot of teens and tweens and some with like different learning disabilities, is when someone feels uncomfortable, they do what they tell me keeps them safe. And if I were to show you what they do to keep themselves safe, it is frightening.
What?
Like they grab something, they let go, and it's as if they're about to fall and break their neck.
Right.
Because our instincts aren't always right. My instinct to keep trying to drink better was not right.
Right.
I needed a new instinct. I needed better information, better mentors. I needed honestly a life that we have now, which is people are sober curious, and that's a thing. But when I see what people do to try to keep themselves safe, I'm so reminded that while I'm such a big believer in going with your gut, sometimes your gut is just off.
Well, because a lot of times you end up doing in a situation what you've always done because you think it's the right thing, but sometimes it can just be bad habits. Like they say like, people who grew up in like, chaos, they go to the chaos.
It's their barometer.
It's their barometer, even though they know, like, I don't want to be in the chaos. I want to change my life. I want to be different. There's like a magnetic pull toward what is most familiar or what seems easiest. And it's really strange because it doesn't actually differentiate between something that's good for us that will have a positive outcome and something that's bad for us that will have a negative outcome. It's just whatever is familiar. In terms of beliefs, I want to talk about I must have been, my daughter did get a surgery on December 31st. So I feel like I was like asleep over New Year's, figuratively and literally, but she literally had the surgery like the morning of New Year's Eve. But what I was going to say is like I must have been asleep because I thought all of this talk of like the year of the snake, the year of the horse, everybody talked about it like it was December 31st. But now I know better. Obviously, like it's the Chinese New Year and that doesn't start January 1st. But for some reason in my mind, I had it. And I was really excited to talk about this concept of beliefs today because it was brought to my attention that actually the year of the snake ends February 16th. And if you haven't heard about the year of the snake and you're wondering like why I'm talking about reptiles, it's actually this very kind of spiritual, symbolic thought that, the past year has been all about shedding and getting rid of the things that are no longer serving us and committing in our minds and like our hearts to release those things, right? And so the year of the snake ends on February 16th, like right around the corner. And then in comes the year of the fire horse, which is all about action and freedom and moving forward boldly and rapid change and growth and faster pace of life, which I'm not really sure how faster the pace of my personal life can get at this moment. But whatever, I'm here for the horse. And so, I was grateful to learn this, that like this shedding is kind of still going because since my daughter had the surgery, I've been like all kind of torn up inside and not feeling right. My energy has felt off. Like the full moon came and I basically just turned into a straight up like werewolf / witch. My husband would say another word, but it would be a B instead of the W. And with these beliefs, I realized, especially in the last couple of weeks, that like there are some long-held beliefs that still kind of need some shedding on my end. And I'm wondering what beliefs on your end have you been wanting to shed in these last like final weeks? Not that we can't shed once the fire horse comes in.
Yes.
We can. We can
cut off.
Yes, we can keep
the
shedding our
sands of
beliefs.
time runneth out.
You've heard me talk about Room for Paws Pet Resort before and how much our golden doodle bleaker loves staying there when we're traveling. But did you know they also offer daycare, training, puppy preschool, and a professional grooming spa specializing in Doodle's grooming services? Visit roomforpawspetresort.com and mention That Greenwich Life for 20% off your next full-service groom. Looking for a place where your kids can move, grow, and build confidence? At Jackrabbits Gymnastics and Soccer Club right here in Greenwich, Coach Nikolai and Coach Daniela create a fun, supportive environment for all age groups. My daughter Gemma loves her classes there so much, we even asked them to host her second birthday last year. To find out more, visit jackrabbitsgym.com.
I have two rules in my studio, and I say this largely when I have younger girls. I work with a lot of tweens and teens, which are some of my favorites because I always wish I'd had someone more supportive in my life during those years. I say, we don't say I can't, and you have to listen to your mom. I
love that.
I do not allow rudeness in my studio. I'm very against that, and which I see often with young girls. And so to me, the belief is really I can't when it comes to anything, because that's just where forward movement comes from. Because the only reason, or the first reason we don't do something is if we believe it's out of reach. Mm-hmm. And, I come from a small town of 6,000 people. I have no connections to major cities or knew what Aspen was until I moved there, truly. And if I let belief pause me, then I would not have made the life that I have, which is still not as conscious as you think, because it's less about where and how and more about those feelings of powerful, free, and alive. How can I find them for myself, and how can I help other people find them? Because, I've gone through so many different edits of my copy. Thank you to my husband for continuing to edit it.
Isn't it great when we put them to work like that? But my husband's always like, I'm like, that this is not my area of expertise. My job too. He says that too.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't ask you about like things at work. And I'm like, hit me with it. And he's like, I can't. Like, you never understand what I'm talking about. He's in finance. It's like completely different brain,
Yeah, but powerful, I think we've all felt powerless. Free, I think we all feel stuck. And alive, I think we all feel less than that often. So finding alignment with those values, with those feelings can be a huge guidepost. And everyone should find, their internal pillars. But when it comes to belief for me, it's, I say it often enough and less so, but I would just say moving, I can't, away from my vernacular.
Yeah. I mean, I think beliefs definitely play into so much of what we do, and really, I think even more so of what we don't do. And like when we're talking about beliefs, these are like things that you really pick up very subconsciously throughout your life. It's part of what shapes you and makes you you. And the other day, I want to share the story. I was talking to my son, Nick, who's 10. And I don't think I mentioned you have 2 children as well.
Yes.
How old are your kids again? 4?
4 and 7.
4 and 7, yes. So you're still very much in it like
yes,
I am.
Co-sleeping in the mix.
Oh
the
my
whole
gosh.
to-do.
Yeah, no, it's exhausting. But my son was saying that, at swim practice, the coach was crashing out, because I just like love how all the cool kids say that these days, and, she was like, everybody was talking, and she started, yelling at him, like, you never stop talking or something, she said. And, he's my kid, so it tracks. I mean, I don't fault her for saying that, but I said to him, like, I actually felt a large reaction coming up.
Yeah.
Like, why would she say something like that, But I stopped and I said to him, well, how did that make you feel when she said that? And he said, oh, I didn't really care. Now I'm thinking to myself, oh God, he doesn't respect authority, But he says, oh, I didn't really care because I feel like it had more to do with her than with me. And he's 10. And I said, okay. I said, that's really interesting. I said, what do you believe to be true in that situation? Do you think what she said is true? And he said, I think that she's right, that I do talk a lot, but also like everybody was talking. And I know that it's true that that I know that it's not true exactly what she said, that I'm always talking. He said, no, that's not true. And I said, well, that's good. I said, because, a lot of people, especially at a young age, this belief could form, by somebody important to them, a teacher, a coach, a parent, a babysitter, by saying like, you talk too much and you're always talking and you really need to like stop talking so much. Mm-hmm. And that belief could form in their head. And then they could become more withdrawn. Like I've seen it before with kids and with people. And it was just kind of like that little mom moment where I got to see like a topic that, we were going to be talking about here, like in action. Mm-hmm. If I were to reverse back to like when I was 10, right? I don't know if I was that sure of myself. I don't know if I was that sure of who I was. I think if I was yelled at by somebody important and an adult that I respected and looked up to, I think I probably believed that maybe there was something wrong with me and maybe I was talking too much or, whatever it was that you're being disciplined for. And so it was a good reminder, even as an adult, that we have to challenge some of those beliefs that are already deep-seated in us. And we have to like really go in and try to like find the air, like you said, right? Like find the air, like find the space. And I think, for people listening, I want to share this this kind of thing that I read about this book, The 3 Beliefs of Ego, where there's 3 limiting beliefs that lead to our least enjoyable emotions: sadness, anger, and fear. And I'm going to say them in a second, but if you think about it, like that is the truth. Limiting beliefs end up contributing to a lot of those things.
Yeah, I mean, your story is reminding me, when I was 12, I was a cheerleader, and it just meant everything to me. I practiced tirelessly, and in timeouts or half times, another girl and I would go out and do, 50 cartwheels across the gym floor. And then one day, and she was in 8th grade and very cool, and I was in 6th grade, not very cool. And she said, I don't want to go out with you this time because people are saying we're showing off too much. And that comment, one comment, this girl really triggered a need. And it didn't stop me from doing lots of, I would say, scripted, like theater performances, things like that. But showing up outside of a perfect time and place to show my gifts became something I felt very ridiculed by and very ashamed of. Because I had been so proud to do it and so glad to do it with her. And that, I think, if I think about SSN as it is now, talking about the astuteness of our children, my 4-year-old will see I take so many pictures of my clients, and he'll say, but where are you? I don't see you in this. And he said, oh, well, I'm taking the pictures. It's kind of like, I'm the mom to the kids, and the moms all take the photos, the moms take the picture in the studio. And I think there is still work to be done for me around my own visibility as the founder, as the creator, and not just with my own story, but beyond my movement, really my own identity. Because as much as SSN is built so largely upon the community, it wouldn't be here without me. And so my own ability to show up and to shed that comment from 30 years ago is really important.
That's really wild, because just that comment, right? Like, you're all excited about your cartwheels and you're so pumped and like you feel like you're so cool. I mean, that is really cool just to go out there and do all those cartwheels. But then somebody says something, and like, words matter, because they really do shape a lot of our beliefs. And then you hold that belief, because then it's almost like, not that you become self-conscious, but then you just wonder, like, oh, am I too much? Am I putting myself out there? Am I too much? I mean, that goes through everybody's head, I think, at some point in time. Some of our minds a little bit more than others. Certainly, I have had to ask myself that question, and there probably are people who think I'm too much. But it's interesting how beliefs can just kind of sit quietly and dormant, like in your brain, in your subconscious, and then they can dictate the decisions that you make. But I will say, you are, by being here today in the studio, right? Because I think you said you had done another podcast, but it was over Zoom. So by doing your very first podcast in a studio, you're beating that belief, right? Like, you're putting yourself out there and you're doing it.
Well, and I think my daughter just started her first acting class yesterday, which she loved and is so exciting.
So cute.
It's really important to put yourself out there, because no one can know what you don't share.
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, so these 3 limiting beliefs, I just want to read these really quick, because I found this to be so fascinating. And I know if you're walking your dog right now listening to this, or picking the kids up from soccer or whatever it might be, folding laundry, I know that this is going to resonate. So the first one is the belief in lack or incompleteness, which leads to sadness.
Oh, yeah.
To sadness. Well, scarcity too. But like, the belief in lack or incompleteness, that's a good point. It does lead to scarcity, because then you constantly feel like you don't have enough. And when you feel like you don't have enough, you're never going to have that abundance that you actually secretly deep down wish for, right? Mm-hmm. And I love the lack or incompleteness, because I talk about it a lot on the show, about imposter syndrome. And this feeling, when I did my event, That Greenwich Life Live, it went through my head a million times, this feeling of like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? Like, who's going to come? Nobody's going to come. Nobody wants to come and sit and listen to me on stage. Like, why? Yeah. Like, why? Why am I talking to myself like that? Because somewhere along the lines, somebody or some experience put this belief in my head that, I'm not worthy of other people's, attention and love and adoration, and working on it, always kind of working on it. So that's kind of like the first one. And then the second one is the belief that outcomes will make us happy, which I thought this one was fascinating, because and that leads to anger, because then like, you're not getting what you want. And that one just, I don't know. For me, I would say, when I think back on my fertility journey, that one definitely rings true. Like, the belief that outcomes will make us happy. Like, if I just have the baby, if it just works out, then I'll be happy. And the fertility journey was literally by design because I had so many deeper things to heal before I actually became happy. The happiness needed to come before the successful pregnancy and the live birth and the actual baby and my daughter Gemma. And then the third one is the belief that we have control. And this is one that I think a lot of us struggle with. And that leads to fear. So I thought this was like, wow, like a very concise and very profound way of explaining these beliefs that we have that kind of guide our lives. Because when people think that they have control, I mean,
Well, it's interesting in a nerdy way. So I do teach on Pilates reformers. I'm classically trained. It's SSN, but it's also very close to reformer work of the classical kind. But everyone that practices Pilates, or many people say, I practice Pilates because his name was Joseph Pilates. But his method was actually contrology. So the study of control, which is really fascinating. And, he was a German man, so that sort of tracks. But I think we are drawn to the springs are this way, the exercise looks like this, there is a system. And as much as I chase that control all the time, in my work, I tend to not ever teach the same class twice. So I have women that come, yes, weekly, but I have many women that come every single day, sometimes twice a day. So the ability for them to be with changing movement, even as familiar as they are with me, they are not able to be in control. So practicing what is it to be in a space where we don't know what's next. I mean, I was a child. I couldn't go to bed until my parents told me what was going to happen the next day.
Interesting.
So it's very fascinating. And trust me, I'm not the greatest student when I don't know what's coming next.
Right.
But I think we are all seeking control so much of the time. And perhaps that weighs so heavily on what we believe is possible, because if we believe we can do X, Y, or Z, we may not be encouraged to try to do more because we don't know if that belief will hold true, if we'll be able to do what's on the other side of what we can currently create and have consistently created. So there's that challenge, that bravery, which challenges fear time and time again.
Yeah. I mean, that is a really good way of putting it. When I thought about these beliefs, I was thinking, like, if you were to challenge the belief that we have control, if you were to say to yourself, okay, you know what? I actually know that I'm not in control, that, like nothing that I do is going to, I'm just thinking, I'm talking about myself because I'm thinking about my fertility journey. And when I just kept having like miscarriage after miscarriage, and I was going and doing the IVF cycles and then getting a call that, we sent 3 embryos to the lab for testing. And then 3 weeks later, they all came back and like, they're all abnormal. Like just the roller coaster of it. I wanted so badly to just white knuckle the whole process and just like get it done, like get her done, like I'm going to do this. Like I got this, I got to figure this out. And I'm tired just talking about it. But I realize, like, when you say, okay, I no longer have control over this. I give it up, uncle, I'm done. Like there's nothing that I can do. It's so true that like the fear really does dissipate. And you think that it's going to be like, there's going to be even more fear. Because if I give up control, then I'm afraid of what's to come. But weirdly enough, once I was like, I can't, I'm done. Like you win, beat me down. I'm done. I can't even like take one more breath. Universe, you got it. You win, I lose, then you really do get rid of that fear, because then I just felt this like this peace, like a little tiny bit of fear, like, well, what's my life going to look like now? Like, I'm just not going to have another child. Like, what's it going to look like? And I just said, okay, each day, I'm just going to make like, this is the first day of like a totally new path. And it felt peaceful. And then I found out that I was pregnant. And then it was no longer peaceful. But then I really had to put that that belief, like in the past, the belief that I had control over things, really, really had to let go of that one for those 9 months. Because if I didn't, then I would have been like in a straitjacket, like locked away somewhere, because I would not have been well. And I wasn't well. It was hard. But it's amazing how when you let go of like some of these like ingrained beliefs, it's amazing how freeing it can be if you just really like dig deep and give it a try.
Yeah, I mean, you use the word white knuckle, which there are all different types of sobriety. There are people who choose it for health. There are people who choose it just for an easier, more peaceful lifestyle. But I think for those who really struggle with drinking, with what happens when they drink, what happens after they drink, there are people that they call like white knuckle sober. They just don't drink, and it's a really hard thing, and they're kind of angry about it all the time. And that is a way to survive life, not to live it, but to be with a pulse.
Right.
Recovery doesn't have to be, but often comes from the steps in AA. And the first one, which, I think the content for you, a lot of that is fertility. And that is, something I just, my heart goes out to you and to anyone. I think there's something that's so connected to being a woman and beliefs around your body and identity that, that is something it's so powerful what you've been through. And
thank you.
I mean it. But the first step in AA is to say, I am powerless over alcohol. Mm-hmm. And again, alcohol could be replaced by anything.
Right.
Sometimes we say, oh God, I wish that person had a drinking problem because they could benefit from the steps.
Right. It's true. It's so true.
But being now, this is my third time sober. If I were asked, point blank, what prevented me from staying sober, it was not committing to that first step. Because the thing is, you get sober enough, you get some time under your belt, and you're like, I've actually got this. Like, I've had 6 months or I've had a year.
Right.
And what they say about recovery is that while you are in recovery, your disease, your addiction, however you perceive it, and I have many mixed thoughts on this, but your addiction is doing push-ups. It is getting stronger and stronger. So it is not a fight to not like guzzle wine or gamble or spend. It is a daily battle to beat the belief that you have power over something you do not.
Yeah.
Because I never had power when I thought I did. I would say, I will have 2 tonight, or I will have a glass of water in between, or I will stop at this time. And it was always a lie. And not for lack of willpower. People who drink or do something that is not good for them relentlessly have incredible belief. They get back up time and time again. It is that acceptance of what I believe is true is no longer true. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, the baby can come, the recovery can come, all the things on the other side. But when we admit what we're powerless to, that's when the real power comes in.
That's entirely correct. That's the perfect way of putting it. When we admit what we are powerless to, the real power comes in. And that is when you really see the huge transformations in your life occur. When you stop thinking that you're in charge. And when you stop thinking that, if I do X, Y, and Z, the intended outcome will be there. Because it's not always true. It's the letting go that lets everything else in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I could talk to you all day. This has been such an amazing, amazing, inspiring conversation. Certainly for me. I know a lot of people at home have heard different things here that has really spoken to them. You spoke from the heart, and I'm so appreciative of you sharing your journey and everything that you've been through and everything that you've accomplished. It's really amazing. Your energy is incredible. I'm so lucky that we met. And
Same.
I just, like I said, guys, if you're not following Sarah on Instagram, you have to go on at Sadie Newett, Sarah Sadie Newett. And then her website is sarahsadienewett.com. You have to just check out how peaceful and meditative these videos are that she posts. I look forward to your content. I think it's so fun and fabulous. But I do sit there and say to myself, that's amazing. I could never do that. So I got to obviously work on those beliefs. But yeah, thank you for coming today. And Thank you guys all so much at home for tuning in, at home or on the go or wherever you are. This was a really powerful episode, and I feel like it's going to give me a lot to think about when I sign off and go grab my daughter from school, and we're, going to be taking her off to Disney on Ice and, do all like the fun mom things. Yeah. But I'm just so grateful to be here. And this is episode 9, which is wild. Next week is the last episode of season 2, which I can't even believe that I'm saying. I will definitely talk more about it next week because everybody's like, what? It's already over? But you did 44 episodes season 1. And I'm like, yeah, but that's because I was psychotic then. And now I've actually come back down to earth and realized what my limits are. And, I'm trying to honor those. But it has been an amazing season. It's not over yet. One more episode next week. Tune in every Monday. Thank you guys so much. And I'll see you all next week. Thank you to our season 2 That Greenwich Life presenting sponsor, RMA of New York. RMA of New York is a full-service fertility center that offers fertility testing, IVF, egg freezing, male reproductive medicine, and LGBTQ family building. And with 14 clinics across Manhattan, Brooklyn, Westchester, and Long Island, they make expert care accessible. RMA of New York is changing lives and helping so many of us write our next chapter. Visit rmany.com for more info.